all my brothers and my sisters and me. Okay, so listen, I want to talk to you about, I guess, what could be considered a controversial topic in the world of Neville, um, and that is everyone is you pushed out. And I think it's an extremely important concept, and a lot of people hear that and they're like, "Oh, one, I don't get it, and two, I don't know how it could apply to me and help me manifest better." That's what we're going to talk about, okay? Because I think a lot of people, and I'm going to be writing a much more detailed breakdown of what this is and how you can use it on my Reddit. So check me out on Reddit under my name tag, which is OK-initiative, right? And so you can check out all my other articles there as well. But um, I think the reason why it's so controversial is because there's a lot of misunderstanding behind it. And I think it's super valuable and important that we kind of deep dive into it and figure out what's being said and why it's being said. And then also like talk about some neuroscience behind it, give you an NLP new strategy. If you've been following me for the last 7 to 10 days of me doing these lives, and check out the other ones, right? Then you'll realize and recognize that basically I'm all about practical tips. This is not about giving you theory and having you think you're God. Like, I mean, that's great. And by the way, that's true. You should. But how do you get there? How do you get there practically? What's going on with the mind when you do? What's going on with the mind when you don't? Okay. So why don't we deep dive into this? So everyone is you pushed out. So for Neville, it's a concept that actually isn't his own. It actually comes from the Bible, okay, and it comes from ancient Hebrew thought. Now remember, the Bible was not written to humans about humans and written about humans that lived thousands of years ago. It was written to the inner self, for the inner self, as a handbook and guide to and for the mind, right? So, again, when Neville talks about everyone being you pushed out, it's an ancient Hebrew thought. It's not his original own thought. It's coming from Deuteronomy, and it's from this one, which is the concept, which is, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one." Okay, and now that actual concept shows up in Scripture a lot. And now remember, Scripture isn't written as a human historical document. Don't read it like that. It's a handbook. If you read it that way, then you begin to understand why there's some weird shit going on and there's some stuff going on that's like, oh, that makes more sense as a guidebook for how to use this to manifest, right? Like there's a there's a verse in John literally talks about a napkin. What the hell is a napkin? Well, that's actually an esoteric metaphor for the placenta, right? And so it's talking about birth. But what is birth? It's the birthing of your desire, right? It's the birthing of your own awareness, and so on and so forth. So again, as we deep dive into this, I'm going to be dealing with some controversial stuff, especially free will, all of this kind of stuff. A lot of people take everyone as you pushed out as a concept to mean I can control my significant other. I can control that person, right, that I want to love me. And one, that's a messed up way of thinking about this. But two, I think it's also a misunderstanding. Hey, Catherine, how are you doing? Um, yes, thank you for your patience. Yes, I was actually on a roll, and then, of course, the temperature was a little bit too hot. So now we're outside. So thank you very much. And so, the best way to understand this concept, and remember, we're not talking about this concept as theoretical, philosophical. We're talking about it being practical. How can you use this information to help you manifest better, quicker, and faster, right? And to get you what you want. So again, everyone as you pushed out is better understood backwards. Okay, and we're going to talk about the neuroscience and what's going on, because it's very interesting actually when you start understanding this concept as a way to understand your mind and brain and the way it functions. So again, everyone as you pushed out is better understood backwards. Don't try to understand it as, oh, this means everybody is me, and then because everybody freaks out, right? They're like, oh my gosh, have I caused that? Did I cause this? Did I cause them to say that, and then this, and then that? So it becomes more about paranoia, right, than it does about anything helpful. And so, and by the way, I am going to give you I'm going to give you a worksheet to actually help you out with this. So remind me if for some reason I forget to put that up here. But there's a worksheet to help you through a concept that I'm going to give you. But again, it's better understood as decategorization. Okay, that's what everyone is you pushed out is better understood at, and I think it's going to be very helpful for you. Okay, and that is this idea that we are not categories. We are not the categories we accept. Okay, so there's this verse. Remember, the verse isn't historical, it's mental. Okay, it's talking psychologically. And Paul, the author, if he wrote it, said this, right? There is neither Jew nor Greek, right? There's neither male nor female. And he goes through this long list. Now, if you don't know Greek writing, when you read that verse that Paul is saying, and it, by the way, this verse that he's talking about is everyone is you pushed out. He's just saying it backwards. And I think this is an easier way for you to understand this rather than get scared of this term, right? Or if you've effed up somebody's life or you feel like you've done it to yourself. There's more to this than that, okay? Yes, it is about responsibility. Yes, it is about consciousness. Yes, it is about awareness. But the power behind recognizing this and realizing this is super, super. Okay, so let's modernize this concept. Sorry about that. Okay, so let's modernize this concept. When Paul, who's writing to the mind, says there's neither Jew nor Greek, right? There's neither male nor female, right? That list in Greek is meant to continue. So when you read that verse, it's an ongoing list. What he's saying is there's no such thing as categories. But let's make this, because this is where controversy comes in. When he says Jew or Greek, this is literally saying there's no ethnicity. There's no black or white. There's no Chinese. There's no Asian. There's no, right? There is none because all is what? What does he say at the end of that verse, right? Everything is in Christ. What is Christ? Your imagination. What that means is everything, all the labels that we give it, all of the things that we value, all of those things that we think are true, right, of reality and ourselves, the identities that we accept as true, are simply things that we are experiencing as true, not because they're true, but because we believe them, because we accept them. Another way to say this is there's no separation from you and your desire. Take that in. So if somebody could write that down, there's no separation between me and my desire. No separation between me and my desire. Okay? Now, a lot of people say, oh, that's cool in theory, but how do I get there? Okay? Because here's the thing. You are God. But a lot of people really don't, like that term. So check out my other video on and there's another live on this where I'm like, listen, how you define God matters. Okay, if you define God as powerless or God outside of you or God that you have to go to church or to a mosque or read Torah, whatever it is, then you haven't found him or her, right? God is this thing inside of you called the imagination, and it creates, and it always is creating, right? And so, yes, thank you, right? And so, again, everyone is you pushed out. Thank you so much, Catherine. Is this idea that there's no separation, only the belief that you are separated. So there's another verse that the author Paul says that nothing can separate us from the love of God, right? And what is the love? Love is the birthing of your imagination, right? And so nothing. And by the way, when that says in Greek nothing, it literally means there's no object. There's no landlord. There's no violent mother. There's no emotionally disassociative husband. There's no, right, there's no angry tax person. There's no, escrow process. There's no, like you fill in the blank. There's nothing that can separate you, right? But, and I'm going to explain to you why it's so hard to separate, okay? But I really, really want to hammer this home. So I know you're going to hear me say this for the next minute and a half very, very similarly because because the brain loves repetition. This is why if you watch my lives, and you should go check out the other ones, right? And I'm going to continue these, okay? That you hear me repeat a lot because neuroscience shows that the only way that we learn is through repetition, right? Even though I hate American education systems, right? Because we've defined learning as repeating, that's not the same as learning, right? First, understanding is actually done through repetition, and then learning, as in applying what you understand, is actually then the application. That's when you're like, oh, there's a new idea, let me go try it out, and right? There's no application in the American school system, right? Hello again, Al here. Sorry about that earlier. Bye. So yeah, thank you. And so what I want to do, though, is really get you to the heartbeat of what Neville is saying and why it matters for you as manifestors, okay? So again, remember, everyone is pushed out is all about decategorizing, letting go of categorizing. Okay, don't think about the oneness, because people think of that and they're like, well, how is that helpful to me, right? Don't think about that. Think about how you have accepted categories and that you are experiencing those categories. So for example, I think somebody left earlier before this dropped, she had said that she had lost some money to an investor, right? And so, and this is not guilt. If people hear everyone is you pushed out and they automatically think guilt or control or I can take somebody else's free will away, you don't understand it. That's called abuse. Whether you're abusing yourself through guilt or regret, or whether you're trying to control somebody else. Okay? And so that's where we need to understand. Hello, Dominic. I don't shave because I don't want to. And so, again, let's come back to this, all right? Is ultimately what I would like to do is get to the heart of that the EIYPO, everyone as you pushed out, is not accepting categories. That's really what it is. So don't try to understand this forward thinking as in a concept that you go and look up and you hear Neville explain it as everyone is one, right? That's part of it, right? But the real power in it is decategorization. It's letting go of those things that you fear. It's letting go of those, oh my gosh, my landlord has more power over me, or oh my gosh, my car breaking down has more power over my emotions, like meaning you get pissed off because your car got a flat tire, or whatever it is, right? That's really what this is. You are taking back your power, okay? Um, okay, all right. So, yeah, so again, I would love to, you know, kind of take this deeper, right? Okay. So, yeah, so again, you are more than your categories. You are more than your race. You are more than your memories. You are more than your emotions. You are more than your thoughts. You are more. That's another way of thinking of this. But a lot of people like to use this as a way of saying, oh my gosh, can somebody manifest me? No, no one can manifest you. We're accepting it. Okay, so Neville has another one where he calls the law of transmission. Okay, so the law of transmission, right? The law of transmission is all about the ability to. Um, again, transmission is you, right? Only realizing that you accept thoughts that are the most influential to who you think you are. Let that sink in. Okay, if you have sort of ethical guide of like not like stealing is wrong, and somebody's trying to manifest that you steal something for them, it's not going to work, right? Oh, thank you very much, 17cc. Um, and so right, and so again, you have free will, but that means other people do as well. So then people say, well, how can I influence somebody else if I say I will? Well, that's persistence. That's why you do have people that are thieves. That's why you do have people that are murderers, right? And so again, but the main idea here isn't whether you can control somebody, whether somebody has free will or not, right? You should always be guided by the golden rule. Okay, golden rule, what? Do unto others what you would have them do to unto you. The other thing I want to talk about, and I'm going to do actually a video separate to this one, so check that out when it comes out, on karma, because there's no such thing as karma. I know people are going to really fight this on me, but let me explain why. Okay, let me explain why. All right, let me explain why there is no karma in the way in which we understand it. And I really need you to go jump on and find a lecture by Alan Watts. So Alan Watts, if you don't know much about him, right, he was also a mystic as well, but he was very much grounded in our time. He would talk about war, he would talk about everything, right? And he was focused more on Buddhism, okay? But bringing Buddhism here. And so he talks about karma, and his understanding of karma is extreme, like songs like from JoJo, like karma is always understood. It's very westernized understanding. Is karma is somehow this vengeance, right? Karma is going to get you. No, there's no thing as that type of karma. Even if you go back into ancient Buddhism, there's no idea that's accepted that there is this vengeance out there to get you. That's an old Christianized way of understanding a Buddhist concept, right? That there's this angry God and it's going to come and get you and all of this kind of stuff. None. So Alan Watts actually breaks it down from the Sanskrit and the ancient linguistic origins, which is really just manifestation. Karma is your manifestation. Karma is your set of beliefs. You are experiencing your set of beliefs, and you've experienced that. That is your karma. Okay? There is no karma that is out to get you. There's no God that's out to get you. This is why I say in my other video, which I'm saying to go check it out again on my lives here, go check out under my live categories about how you define God. Because if you define God as something that is retribution, as in this God's out to get you, guess what? You're going to experience a life where you always feel like something or someone or anything, fears are out to get you, right? So that is not karma. Karma is not vengeful, right? Unless you believe God is vengeful, right? Unless you believe your beliefs are vengeful, okay? So again, everyone as you pushed out has nothing to do with karma whatsoever, not with the Western concept at all. Because the Eastern concept of karma is just manifestation. You get what you believe. That's really a better modernized way of understanding karma. But to understand this, right, we have to turn to neuroscience as well. This is super interesting, by the way, so I hope you're staying on, right? And by the way, if you're looking for coaching, like, I mean, my coaching is backed by my Harvard training. My coaching is backed by behavioral science, you know, all of these kinds of things. And again, I'm about change. I'm about growth, right? And there are coaches who are out for just money, right? Yes, sure, I have to pay the bills, but at the same time, I care about what I do, and I'm good at what I do. So again, get in touch. There's a thing on my bio, a link, an email. There's also a free Discord group that are, you know, like-minded people like yourself there. So again, let's come back to this. What's going on in the mind, though, right, when we're categorizing? Because remember, let's go back to this, just a really quick reminder, what is everyone as you pushed out really fundamentally saying? And don't forget to check out my Reddit article on this that I'm going to break down, probably going to be up in the next 2 or 3 days, okay? So, it is about categories. So let's just set this up, because people like practical, right? So again, let's say you're a person who is struggling to pay your money, like your monthly bills, like let's say your grocery bills, your rent, your car bills, your phone bills, all those kinds of things. Okay, so that means along the way, whether it was when you were 7 or 4 or 12 or 23, you've accepted a category or a set of categories about money, but also maybe even not just about money, but about life. Maybe you watched a series of television shows that impressed upon your subconscious that people struggle when they have their own apartment. People struggle when they have their own cars. People struggle when they, or just people struggle. That could be your macro belief. Check out my video on macro micro beliefs, okay? Because that's how we function every day. We're not functioning on one belief, we're functioning on 2 different set beliefs. The Bible calls it agreement, and they're always in agreement with one another, okay? So again, what you're dealing with, though, is that when you start accepting categories, all right, categories are just rules, okay? And if you look up the word categories, that means you're affirming. Like check this out, okay? Because remember how we're like big into affirmations in these communities? Well, what you've accepted, even your race, even your religious categories, if you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, those are limits. Those are categories. Those are things you will experience, and you will experience the whole of it, right? So there's a verse in scripture that says, be perfect as I am perfect. What does that mean? Well, the being is what you're experiencing. You are that, right? So the perfect means it's continuous. It's a closed loop. It's like saying, if you think that you're a certain race, you're going to explain and experience and talk about that experience holistically. You're not going to miss out on anything, right, of that particular category. So if you start saying you're poor, you're going to experience the fullness of that category. That's what the word perfect means. So be perfect as I am, which means whatever you put after I am, right, is going to be perfect, which means you're going to experience the fullness of, if you believe in pain, right? So this is why Neville and Joseph Murphy say, do not concede, do not accept, right, that you believe in loss, okay? That is ultimately what is being argued here, right? Everyone as you pushed out means they're only projecting to you your own set of beliefs that you've agreed to, right? And they're just messengers, they're witnesses. When the Bible uses the word witness, that's what it's being talked about. People are only witnesses to what you believe about yourself, what you've accepted as true, okay? And so all of these things are, right, impacting, okay? Everything is impacting you because you've accepted it, right? So if you accept loss, you're going to experience loss. Even the Bible talks about that in the parable of the lost son, in the parable of the 99 sheep, right? What does Jesus do? The imagination, it goes and gets what you think is lost, okay, right? And so remember, and here's the thing, that word in Hebrew for sheep, which is a metaphor for your desire, is Rachel, which is a young ewe lamb, but it also means wandering, which means if you don't control and guide your emotions and your thoughts and all that kind of stuff, this is not about exhaustion, by the way. When I say guide your emotions, I'm not talking about emotional exhaustion or toxic positivity. This is not what this is about, Okay, if you've fallen into that, like maybe because of Esther Hicks or somebody else misrepresenting the law, that is not what this is about. Okay, it is not about being happy all the time, but it is learning to guide your whole mental process. Okay, actively. Okay, because otherwise your desires will wander. It's as if the ancients wrote that parable with the argument that your desires naturally are going to wander. So even Neville said when he would actually try to create his scenes, what? His mind would what? Wander. So he'd have to bring it back. That's what you're doing. This is what life is for, right? Learning how to bring all of your desires in alignment, in agreement with who you are. That's what this is. That's what everyone is you pushed out, because all it is just showing you, right, where you're at in your beliefs. So if you accept categories, right, as, oh, this is what it means to be poor, then you've accepted that. And then you've accepted the fullness of experiencing all of that, right? You're going to struggle. It's going to be hard to pay bills. You're going to get jealous. You're going to get all of these things that come with that particular state, right? Oh, yes. So very, very good question. And I do want to answer that, Raheem, because I think that's a super important question. So please, everybody check out what Raheem just asked, because I think that's a super good question. So because I'm about mental health. I'm trained in mental health. So this is why I'm doing this and all of these lives as well. And this is why I coach. Because I see too many coaches giving other people mental health issues with the law. So again, let me just finish this thought, and then I will come to that question because it's super important. And so again, when you are understanding as everyone is you pushed out as a decategorization, use that as a daily tool. What categories? And when I say categories, I'm talking about what rules, what beliefs, what things have I accepted about who I am, whether it be race, whether it be money-wise, whether it be love, whether it be what categories have I fallen into, right? So Neville says that we fall into states. Now, a lot of people say, well, what the heck does that mean? Because he says you need to surrender to the state. Here's a better way to understand what he was saying there. And I'm going to write this up in an article as well. But when he says fall into a state, now remember, a state is what? A body of beliefs that we accept. A body of what? Categories that we not only accept, and I'm going to explain this in neuroscience in a second, okay? Which is super interesting because you're going to get more, I think, a better picture when I explain out all the neurochemicals that are released, right? Hey, X, how you doing? And yes, 17cc, yes, the world is a mirror. Very good. And so, again, when you fully grasp that everyone is you pushed out is not a way to manipulate others, it is not a way to be afraid of yourself or others or circumstances, but as a way in which to use as a tool to understand what categories have I accepted that have made me feel separated from myself, from others, from the world, from my desire, right? All of those to me are a way better understanding to understand the power behind his concept. Because otherwise it's just like, well, we're all one. Yeah, but that's masturbatory. And if you've heard me say that before, the reason why I say that is because masturbation is just feel good, and nobody gets pleasure except for yourself. There's no sex involved. There's no union, right? Even Neville talks about union, right? The union of what? Your inner conversation, right? Your inner conversation, which means your thoughts, right? Guiding your thoughts and your end desire, right? The energy or the emotion or the feeling that you are projecting out into the energetic field, right? Whatever you want to call this thing or the world, okay? So again, when you are coming to a place where you fully grasp that everyone is you denying that you have your desire. That's it. That is it. Everyone is you denying your desire. And people are witnesses just showing that you are denying it, right? Or your body is, right? Because your body's part of the manifestation. Do you understand? And so everything that you've accepted true about yourself or the categories or rules, right? And remember, what's the word category mean? If you look it up, it means to affirm. That means you're affirming, you're literally creating affirmations without you even trying by saying, oh, it's hard to pay bills. Then guess what? Those are what I call dark affirmations. Okay? So those are called dark affirmations. Can somebody put that down? So again, dark affirmations just means they're not light, right? They're not like I love myself. They're like I'm afraid of myself. Because every time that you create separation between you and your desire, right? You create a darkness, a gap between you and your desire. When all along you're the one who can save yourself, right? And so, okay. Okay, so let me go back to your first question and to your second question. No, I don't think anything's wrong. That's actually another part of this, by the way, that I'm going to talk about right now. But I do want to talk about this. So the difference. So if you're following along, Raheem is asking, what is the difference, right? Um, what is the difference between, okay, wait, between persisting and toxic positivity? Okay, so persisting is very different, and right. Oh, thank you, Catherine. Yeah, there's actually two more sections to this. Everything that Neville writes is usually 3 layers to it, right? So there's actually 2 more layers to it. But yes, thank you for writing that down, by the way, because then everybody else can see that. So I appreciate that. So again, the difference between persisting and toxic positivity. So toxic positivity is like how Esther Hicks, I like Esther Hicks stuff. I like some of her stuff. I like law of attraction stuff. I'm not against it. Okay. But her understanding of emotions is extremely dangerous. Okay. And so, why? Because I work in that actual realm. I study the science of emotions. Right. And so, okay. So, toxic positivity is essentially I've got to be happy all the time. Right. I've got to be happy. And I can only see happiness. I can only react to it as a happy person, and I can never not be happy. That's toxic positivity. It's like militant, right? Where it's like closed-minded, and if you're not, then there's something wrong with you. So then you feel guilty for not being happy. But then when you're happy, you feel guilty because you're not happy enough, right? So then that causes more mental. I actually met people like this. Somebody thought I was like this when I was going to college because I'm a super happy person, right? And I was like, no, I'm just happy about life, right? But there was a person who ended up, for example, she was totally like really cool person, but she never ever gave herself a break. And then about 2 years later, she ended up having a mental breakdown, right? And so, um, right. So again, that's toxic positivity. Okay. But persistence or is an actual ancient Hebrew concept that comes from the word perseverance, right? That the esoteric authors wrote. Now, what does that mean though? Well, in the ancient Hebrew, this is a really powerful understanding, by the way. And I do see your question next as well, and also Raheem's second one, but is the idea that when you look up the word perseverance from the Hebrew, and by the way, I'm still doing a Bible study if you want to join. It's only like $35 when for the times that we meet. Um, so again, perseverance in Hebrew means continuous, but if you drill down, meaning if you go deeper, it also means everywhere or even each. So what does that mean? So again, this is to your question, Raheem, that basically perseverance or persistence means you're bringing that person, that new person who has your desire, right, in the emotion, okay, in the emotion, right, of already having it, or in the feeling of confidence. That's really what you want to go for. You want conviction more than the emotion. You want to be like, I have this, I am this, I own this, right? So you're not like somebody who's trying to manifest a car, you're the car owner. Do you hear the difference? So then perseverance means you're bringing that person with you everywhere you go. So if you want to manifest a car for like right now, right? So then perseverance or persistence, and this is how it's different than toxic positivity, is that you're bringing that person with you everywhere you go, each and every place. Hence the word each, or continuous. You're bringing it with you continuously. Or drill down, everywhere. You're taking it with you everywhere you go. So you're now no longer the person who doesn't have a car. You're a car owner, and if you have to go to work today, you're the car owner going to the work today on the bus. You're the car owner who, after going home, is hanging out with your friends as the car owner. You're then the person who goes to the store as the car owner, even if you have to go there on your bicycle. Right now, you're the car owner. Do you hear the difference? One's not reliant on me being excited all of the time. It's more about conviction. The other one is all about what is actually proven in neuroscience to be known as emotional fatigue or affective fatigue, not effective, but affective fatigue. And you could actually check it up, right? I always love for you guys to fact check me because none of this stuff is BS, right? I'm only sharing what is out there already that you can prove, okay? And then I actually install this into my coaching programs, and I got a really cool like um, kind of like a client's testimony today was saying like you're absolutely the best, like everything that you do has actually worked for me, right? And so that's huge for me, right? So okay, so am I right in the assumption that it's about the feeling, not how vivid the scene is? So X, this is super important as well. And by the way, we're going to go back to EY, everyone as you push out as well. But I do want to answer your questions. So in the assumption that it is about the feeling, not how. Yeah, okay. So yes, but remember, feeling itself is in two layers, or it's better understood as a spectrum. And again, I'm going to write this in an article on Reddit as well. But feeling itself to Neville isn't feeling; it's conviction. That means I know I'm it. But you have to use feeling to get there. So then, to really better understand feeling, you have to understand feeling as a spectrum. Okay, and I do see your question, 17cc, right? And so spectrum means it starts from here and it ends over here. So feeling is like, let's say, for example, like let's go back to this car idea, X, right? So if you feel good, or let's just say it's freedom, and you actually generate the freedom, okay? And remember, now you're bringing that freedom everywhere you go. That's what it means, persist. It doesn't mean toxic positivity. It means you're persisting in the, yeah, sure, emotions, right? But emotions of freedom. Who doesn't want to feel freedom every day, right? So feel freedom every day. Okay, so that's what it means to persist. But then on top of that, right, the feeling must lead eventually to a conviction, right? So if you end up like aborting, you're feeling halfway through and you're like, I feel free, I feel free, I feel free. Oh my gosh, it's so frustrating. I have to be on the bus, or I have to rely on my mom, or I have to rely on my friend for the car. Like, right? Then you've aborted it. Then you have to go back to the spectrum. I've got to work on the freedom again. I got to work on the freedom again, right? And then you got to get to the point where it's on the spectrum, where it ends at the end of the spectrum over here, which is conviction, which is, I know I have it. I know it, right? So that's what Neville is talking about when he, like, for example, when he talks about what his own technique, which is intensification or drenching. There's two different techniques, by the way, right? And so he's talking about the intensification isn't just the emotion or the feeling, but it's also the intensification of the conviction. Now, if you watched any of my other videos, I've given you NLP techniques to actually intensify the emotions, which then are meant to intensify the conviction, right? And again, conviction just means self-belief. I know it. Right? You know how you meet some people and they'll joke, or even the way Kevin Hart jokes sometimes, like, man, I am the shit, right? It is like that. It is that confidence. Even Neville calls it arrogance. You're not being arrogant towards others. It's arrogant towards yourself about what you have. Dude, I have it. I deserve it. I don't need it because I already have it. Right? And so you actually walk through your day having that conviction. Okay? Does that help, X? But yeah, to answer your question, you don't need to have vivid scenes. It helps. Neville actually encourages people to get really good at the scenes and actually using touch mostly, right? Out of all of the senses, use them all, but it does actually, right, help. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, no, you don't need to raise your vibration. I get what she's saying. She's actually not saying anything different. She's just saying in a very different way that really throws people off because they think vibration, because vibration just means like feeling, or your feeling to conviction ratio, like, which is what Neville's talking about. She doesn't explain that though. So people are like, what the hell is raising my vibration is, right? And so, that's ultimately what is going on. So again, 17cc, let's go to you. You look at the car and it's natural to you knowing that you are the owner. Yeah, so when you see it in your imagination, right, and I'll go back to Raheem's question about Bible study, and then we'll go back to EYPO neuroscience, right? And then I'm going to give you a tip, and another one from NLP, a new one, okay? So you look at the car that's natural. Now, natural, the way that Neville uses the word natural is in 3 different ways. Go check out my newest article on Reddit under OK-initiative, and then I actually break those down. In fact, there's actually 4 ways, right? So, right? And so, again, yeah, and oh, that's good, X. I mean, like figuring this stuff out is amazing. And this is, by the way, this is why I do this. This is why I do these talks. This is why I do this live. This is why I coach. This is why I'm using my Harvard training on all of this kind of stuff, because I believe in this stuff, but I also believe in you guys getting what you want, right? So yeah, that's awesome. So again, yeah, knowing that you are the owner. So natural means of your nature, right? So again, a painter doesn't get up and struggle with whether or not he has an action of whether to paint or not. That action is natural to him, okay, because he's a painter. So as a car owner, it's natural to you to own a car, right? It is natural to you to be the person who already has the vehicle. Now, you may wake up and physically not see it in your driveway yet, but you can mentally wake up and mentally see it in your driveway, right? And then you take that conviction with you throughout the day. That is ultimately what you're doing, okay? So I hope that's helpful to people. Keep on asking the questions. But I really want to get to this EYPO, everyone is you pushed out, through the neuroscience as well, okay? Because this will help you understand even, I think, a much deeper level than just, oh, all is one, right? That's not a great, to me, that's not a great concept. Not because it's not a great concept, but because we've heard it so much that people don't really think too much of it, right? So again, yeah, so yeah. So I mean natural, like having the phone I'm holding to see. Yeah, so but again, even that, even in that example, it's a natural extension of who you are, right? You don't feel separate from your phone. I mean, yes, you know there's a difference between you and the phone, but it's still an extension of you because you're communicating through it, right? There isn't a separation in that regard. Like the phone can't separate, I mean, can't communicate without you. And you can't communicate the way that you're communicating with me right now without your phone, right? So do you get what I'm saying? Like, so it's actually a part of you. That's what the natural means as well. But again, there's 4 different ways. I'm not going to go into them today, but there are 4 different ways in which Neville means that, and actually 4 different ways in which you can use that information to manifest. Right? It's super, super cool. Okay, so everyone is you pushed out. The neuroscience is crazy. Okay, because when you categorize, right? So I think if Catherine's still here as well, but I mean, like if you categorize, which means that if you accept certain beliefs and you accept the categories, whether they be race, religious, gender, whatever it is. And by the way, I'm all for those. Like, go ahead and accept those if those are things that are valuable to you. Okay, I'm not here to judge them. I celebrate difference. I'm all for it. Okay, I'm actually probably on that side of this of the political spectrum, anyways, right? So I want people to be able to express themselves. So don't hear any of that when I'm saying this. But what I do want you to hear is that the Hebrew authors, the esoteric authors, had this idea that was like, listen, if you really want to manifest, decategorize, get rid of the categorization, right? So hold them loosely. If you want to hold them loosely. Okay, hey Catherine. Yeah, you know, the reason why I brought you up was because you had written it down. So I was pretty grateful for that. So thank you. And so again, what happens though is how about we talk about it now the back way? What happens when you don't? What happens when you categorize? What happens when you accept beliefs? What happens when you accept things that are outside of you as your first cause? Because you're the only cause, right? So let me just say it it's going to come off very rude, but you are to blame for anything that you ever experience in your life. Not the person, not the boss, not the landlord, right? And I don't like to say that because blame sounds like regret. But I wanted to get that out because I want people to hear, like, basically, manifestation is a call to responsibility. That's really what it is. It's like, I don't get to go and be the victim ever, right? And that's actually powerful because that means if I realize I'm not the victim, that means I have all the power. I don't care what happened to me when I was 7. I don't care what happened to me when I'm 23. I have the power, and the power is here, right? So again, but don't hear me say that any experience doesn't matter. Again, I'm in the mental health field, so of course I'm going to say it matters, right? Because we identify ourselves through our events, okay? So again, what happens though when you categorize? Okay, and by the way, somebody asked me this, and I thought it was a really, really important question, and then we're going to talk about the neuroscience. Is the law of consciousness more powerful than the law of nature? So like gravity, tornadoes, sunburns, all this kind of stuff. Now, this is, again, a very nuanced or a little kind of like hyper-focusing on the everyone as you pushed out. So Neville says this, and it's very powerful, actually, in one of his lectures. If you believe in a sunburn, and this is what he says, you can activate the same cells that create a sunburn. Take that in. Just wait. Take that in, okay? Because people think, oh, there's tornadoes because that's just nature, and nature is outside of the law of consciousness. According to Neville, it's not. There's no such thing that's outside of the law of consciousness. So then why are there tornadoes? Well, there's enough people believing that there's tornadoes, right? Why do people get sunburned? Because they themselves individually believe in sunburns, but then they also have the macro. So again, check out that video, macro beliefs, micro beliefs. You individually could say, I don't believe in sunburns. But if you have a macro belief that other people can get it, then you've opened yourself up to the possibility of you getting it, right? So again, that's macro and micro, okay? And so again, that is what is going on. Yes, yeah, the Kybalion is great, by the way, and the Emerald Tablets, and the Hermes and Thoth and all of that. And by the way, all of this stuff, and I'm still doing research on this, but I've actually traced that the law of manifestation goes back maybe even before the Egyptians, but at least right now we can trace it back to the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And it was actually a great metaphor, by the way. It's a really powerful metaphor because the Book of the Dead, if you read it not as a historical document, but as a psychological, and Neville says, what? This is the world of death. Well, then these, as in the Book of the Dead, is a handbook for what? The mind to get through what? The world of the dead, right? The Book of the Dead. And so in it, it says you need a strong thought, a strong emotion, and a strong conviction. Not my words. That's the Book of the Dead in ancient Egypt, right? And so again, everything you read, hear, taste, touch, smell is a metaphor for how the law works. Every movie you see, guarantee you, and I'm actually going to do a workshop called mental semiotics, and it's actually going to be looking at the symbols that are out there and many, many different ways in which we can see them, right? As not just a story that we're separate from, but actually telling us or giving us and gifting us tips and strategies and techniques. So for example, I love mythology. So I have my whole Notion, yes, Notion as an app, Notion, right, filled with, like, for example, Pinocchio or, you know, Moby Dick, like all of these kinds of stories where I'm looking at them only as a mental document. So if there's a male and female, there's conscious and subconscious, and so on and so forth. And I would challenge you to do that. So I'm going to start a book club that's probably part of the Bible club that Raheem was talking about, right? Where we're going to deep dive into these books, whether they be biblical or not, and we're going to look at them only as mental documents, right? And what are they telling us about ourselves and how to manifest in the world and all this kind of stuff? Because I think it's a way in which you want to train your mind, okay? And that's what this is about as well. So again, what's going on? When you accept that everyone is you pushed out, which is decategorization, which is you removing categories, this is what happens when you don't do that. This is what happens when you're like, no, everything's separate and race and identity and all this kind of stuff, right? All of these kind of things matter. And I'm not saying that they don't matter in the sense that of what's going on with the world right now, okay? But they obviously matter to people, okay? Right? And yes, by the way, Raheem, I actually have ADHD. And I've actually taught a course. I'm actually working on a course as well for just for ADHD people. Because I understand the neuroscience. And yes, it is good for ADHD as well. But again, and I have no opinion about subliminals. I'm more like Neville on that. Like, I don't use stuff like that. Like, I don't read crystal balls. I don't go to tarot readings. I don't go palm readers. I take Neville really seriously about that. So subliminals, to me, if they help you, use them. Do not depend on them. That's really what this is about. Don't become dependent on any of those things. If you go to these places, great. No judgment. But don't become dependent upon them, because then you're going to think that that is what is causing you to manifest, right? And that's why he says that, right? So yeah, what? I take ayahuasca, whatever, but I do that recreationally. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to reach some higher plane. Just do it, right? I don't need it. That's the difference, right? So again, so what happens in the brain when we categorize is it opens up a whole area of your brain. So one is a neurotransmitter called serotonin. So if you don't know much about serotonin, I know people love to talk about dopamine, which, by the way, is misunderstood as well. But like, serotonin is your mood enhancer, okay? That means when you feel good, boom, you get serotonin. When you feel sad, boom, serotonin, right? So it is all about your moods, okay? And so one of the first things that gets deployed in your brain is your mood. So if your category is, guess what? I'm struggling to pay bills. Guess what your mood's already going to be anyways? It's going to be down, right? And then check this out. Then dopamine comes in, which means you're getting rewarded for being in a bad mood about not having money, okay? Then if you repeat that enough, you become an addict. I don't mean an addict as in drugs. I'm talking about you become addicted to being in a bad mood. And then over time, if you keep practicing that, you actually created a personality where you're pissed off at the world. Then you might even be like against certain systems. Then you might be getting, like, you might be against capitalism. You might be against communism. You might be against whatever it is. And that's all started in your mind, right? Because you've categorized, okay? But then even more than that, it actually also activates the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is our autobiographical part of the brain. What that means is, and now you're not only in a mood, Now the part of your brain that tells a story is going to start telling a story about how bad it is for you, okay? And it's going to hook up to memories, right? Okay. Um, if and I do see other questions, but I really want to get through this. But again, Omesh, if you email me, maybe we can connect or join the Discord, or if you want to get the coaching, that's on offer as well. But either way, definitely get in touch. Find me on Discord, find me on Reddit, and I'll be happy to answer that question. Again, so what happens is the prefrontal cortex is your storytelling part of the brain. It's going to give you a story. Most of that story, by the way, is based on what? Your memories. And your memories are what? Usually from your childhood. But it could have happened last week, right? Or things that you've accepted according to Neville, right? Things that you've reacted to. Because anything that you've reacted to, by the way, according to neuroscience, which means a strong emotion, right? You've created a memory. So then that's what you end up living and seeing and perceiving and experiencing and accepting as true. But then you also judge. You judge what is possible based on what you've experienced. So when somebody says, oh, you're going to get out of this, then you say no. Why? Because you just judged their statement and what's possible on your current experience, right? And so, do you get what I'm saying? So, really short, Omesh, there's no such thing as 3P. There you go. Like, I mean, there's no 3P unless you get focused on it, right? And so, yeah, so back to this. So again, you're telling a story. But then check this out. It keeps going, and there's actually more to this than I'm actually sharing, because I'd need another hour to go through actual neuroscience. But like basically, the basal ganglia kicks on, okay? And so the basal ganglia is the physical part that's saying to you, this is the way you moved before in this situation. So I want you to react, and I mean physically react with your body, right? So then maybe last time that you couldn't pay your bill, you punched a hole in the wall. Guess what? Now you're going to have another hole in the wall, right? So you're telling yourself by just accepting one category, which is a separation between you, which is you then not accepting everyone as you pushed out, right? And so again, what and I've been studying about that, actually going to be actually chasing up some interviews on that with people who are involved with that as well. But basically, you really want to get to this idea that your brain is already telling a story based on your mood. Hence why Neville says what? Catch the mood, right? You've got to catch the mood, because then the mood's going to give you a different story in your brain, which is going to give you different physical actions. But right now, if you're still telling the story of being poor, you're still telling the story of 3P, you're still telling the story of not having a car, you're going to have actions that are going to be portraying you as the character who doesn't have that thing, right? Are you with me? So you have to have a stronger story, because people say, well, how do you actually get out of that loop? You have to have a stronger desire. This is why Neville says you have to have a clear desire. That means strong. Don't just say, I want to be rich. No, that's not a clear desire. I want money. That's not a clear desire, right? I want to know that money always comes to me and that I never have to worry. That's a stronger story, because you've now added an emotion to it. You've added a feeling to it. You've added a reason. You've added your why, right? If you just say a phrase, this is why some affirmations don't work for people, because you have no why behind it. What is your why? You have a powerful why, right? Then you have to have a why. So Bella, that's fine. That's great. By the way, there's nothing wrong with that desire. Everybody usually wants money. And what you have to do is you have to assume you already have it, and then you have to assume it until it shows up, right? And if you check out my Reddit article on assumption, I break it down for you, because that's, again, 3 different levels, right? Yes, X. Yeah, for sure. 100%. And no, I actually believe Abdullah was somebody real. Because also Joseph Murphy and a handful of other people actually refer to him. And so, again, you want to get to a place where you realize that the more categories you accept, the more limits upon your experience you are bringing to yourself. Because really, remove the word God and just put experience, right? In the beginning, experience created, right? The heavens and the earth, which is here and this, right? So that's really what you're after. You're after experience. But how do you do that? Well, you have to embody it. How do you embody it? You live it. How do you live it? You think it. How do you think it? You feel it. How do you feel it? You create it in your mind first, right? That's where it all begins. That's the origin of all of this, right? That's what I teach, but at an even more advanced level than I'm doing these lives with you, right, in my coaching program. Okay. And so, so Bella, what I would do is I would create a powerful scene that shows you having that money. But remember, you're after the feeling that leads to a conviction. You're after the feeling that leads to I know I have it, right? You're after the feeling that leads to you, right? So again, Bella, if that's your belief system, then that's going to lead you to experiencing that, right? But again, my thing is that you always have to lead by the golden rule. Would you want that to happen to you? Because if you do, then it's going to happen to you. That's really what Neville is saying, right? If you don't lead by the golden rule, okay, then you're going to experience what you give out. That's really what that means when it says you reap what you sow. So if you believe in stealing and you go and steal, then you cannot be angry or judgmental at somebody who steals from you, right? And that's what he's saying, because he says people will play their roles. People are always in and out of states, which are really just a body of beliefs, right? And you don't manifest from your thoughts or emotions. You manifest from your beliefs, your states, right? And so if you believe it, you have to steal, and that's the only way to get money, Bella, then that's what you're going to experience, right? I don't believe that, but then I have a different ethical system. And that's the other thing, by the way. This is the last part I want to talk about, and then I'm going to end with an NLP technique, okay? There is no such thing as right or wrong. There's no such thing as good or evil. Now, Neville said this. He actually has a whole lecture on this, okay? Why? Because what? It's a category, right? But he says, never ask me, and he's talking about himself, never ask me to do something that is against my own personal code. So everybody else has their own codes. Now, somebody who is a trained philosopher and who has worked in, speaking at universities and all this kind of stuff, and speaking on philosophy and specifically ethics. I'm working on a Bible book of ethics, like literally not a Bible, but it's a huge book of ethics, right? One of the things that you have to realize is that everybody has their own ethical system. Yes, we have what's called the law and all of this kind of stuff, right? So again, right? So Bella, I would actually kind of disagree with that, because they'll be able to steal something. It'll steal your time, steal an object, steal everything. But again, I would encourage you to not think like that. I would encourage you to think that money comes easy to you. I would encourage you to think that there's no necessity for stealing, right? That everything I desire always comes to me. Everything I want comes to me easily. I am a master manifester, right? All of these kinds of things. Work on hardwiring that new person rather than I have to do this thing out of desperation, because guess what? Stealing is a form of desperation, right? And so that means you think you need to do it to survive. And that's an evolutionary response. Right? You don't want to act out of evolution, because the evolution develops your ego, right? So, right, and so you want to act out of a lack of desperation, which means, right, and you can use that little anchoring technique I've taught, and you can check out my video on NLP techniques, 3 of them. I'm going to be putting up more, but check out that one. That will help hardwire this new feeling, right? So again, yeah, so, okay, yeah. So look at what X is writing, everybody else. So, yes, the brain doesn't know the difference, 100%, right? Hence why, for example, they've done neuroscience research on monks, and they gave them a whole bunch of affirmations. I think it was over like 3 to 5 hours. And they hooked up electrodes and all this kind of stuff. And what happened is, basically, what they found out is that the same area that lights up, as in your prefrontal cortex, which is your storytelling brain, right? Your autobiographical brain, right? All of that lights up. Yet another way of saying that is that your brain, even when you affirm, but remember, it's not just affirm, it's affirm with a strong emotion, a strong why behind it, right? That the brain can't tell the difference between them experiencing what they just affirmed, right? Or whether they've actually just said it. There is no difference, right? Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, so again, I want to encourage you to remember that the categories are the things that you will always experience. And so I always encourage my clients is that you want to be editing a category or a limiting belief every single day, right? Because if you want to learn about revision, check out my other videos on it. But also, revision just means unlearning. How are you unlearning what a memory taught you? How are you unlearning what that fight about that your parents had about money taught you all those years ago about money now, right? That's what revision is better understood as. Yes, there's more techniques to it. Yes, there's more powerful mystical understanding to it as well, but I like to make it easy. So again, all right, I know I'm coming up to the hour. So what I want to do is I want to end this with an NLP technique, okay? Now, the way in which the brain works is that it's looking for categories. It's looking for stories, okay? And so there is what's called the visual kinesthetic, right? Hey, Eternal. Um, and so, right? And so, no, Bella, you're loved. You're accepted. You have a lovely community around you, right? So maybe you don't feel that right now. Maybe you don't feel what I just said is true, but that's what you want to start saying, right? You want to start saying that I am a powerful person. I have influence. It doesn't matter my past, right? And so, you know, all of those stories you want to get rid of by having a stronger story, by overcoming them. That's what the Bible means, right? You overcome evil with good. You overcome it. You over and above, right? You overcome it by actually overcoming the evil with good. You don't sit there and fight the evil, right? Yeah? And so you start telling your story. And, you know, Bella, if you're interested, I do coaching. I have coaching packages. We do weekly events like Bible study, which is not a Christian Bible study. It's learning from it and how to manifest from it. Check that out. Join my free Discord, everybody. But again, back to NLP. Okay, so again, there's a visual kinesthetic tip I'm going to give you. Okay, this is similar to some of the other stuff, but it's not exactly. So this is taking a scene that you have that you've categorized, either yourself, you're like, I am this race, I am this religion, or whatever it is that you've experienced that you don't want to experience anymore, right? If you're saying that you're poor, or that you're unlovable, or that 3P is more powerful than you, whatever it is, create a scene, not from the first person. Usually when you manifest, you want to create from the first person. Okay, this is not about, I'm only going to give you one part of this technique. Okay, the second part is you creating the scene. Okay, a very powerful scene from the first person. This is not from the first person. This is the third person. You're watching yourself from the third person like a movie, like a TV. In fact, you can actually imagine that you're looking at yourself on a TV. Okay, it doesn't matter, but you're watching that scene. Okay, and you're going to play it through. Okay, right. And what you want to do is you're going to have these three knobs. The knobs are always going to be a mainstay. Okay, and the knobs, one knob turns on up sound, one knob turns up emotion, one knob turns up, right? One knob turns up feeling and emotion and sound, right? So those are all three, feeling, emotion, and sound. You're going to turn it all up. You're going to feel it. You're going to feel the frustration. You're going to feel the anger. You're going to feel the upset. But what I want you to do is I want you to start moving that TV away. All the objects and all those things get smaller. But here's the thing. As it begins moving away, rewind it. So let's say, for example, you had a bad day with your landlord, and your landlord was like, you need the rent today, blah, 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 blah. So what you're going to do is you're going to actually create the scene as it happened, right? And it's going to be in black and white, but you're going to create it because the black and white distances you from it happening, okay? And it actually distances you from giving it meaning. But you're still going to play it out as the third person, watching yourself, watching even the conversation, right? Maybe there was some aggression, maybe you got mad, maybe she got mad, whoever, right? But whatever it happened, you start playing it through once. Right as soon as you play through that once, you start rewinding it. Rewind it, rewind it, rewind it, okay? This is actually called the rewind method, right? And if you want to fact check me, Google NLP rewind method, okay? So what you want to do is you want to rewind it. And by the way, I do way more techniques, way more advanced techniques that I'm not always going to share on these videos, right? But they are part of my closed Discord. But that's free, right? But are also part of my packages, right? So check those out. But what you want to do is you want to replay it. So then again, do it again. Play through, rewind it. Now what I want you to do is right when you get to the point where you're about to get into a fight, So this is way before anything happens. You're not tense. They're not tense. Nothing's happening, right? And it's right before that. Then start rewinding that. Do it again. Rewind that. Rewind that. Rewind that. Do it like 50 times, right? To the point. Sorry about the background noise, but to the point where you end up not being able to feel the same feelings that you did when it first happened. Okay, so that's how you're going to do. You're essentially reversing. All right, you're reversing the whole scene as if it never happened. Okay, so again, you're going to play it out once, do that a handful of times, all the way through. Then you're going to stop it before any drama ensued. And again, this happens with 3P. You can use this with money. You can use this with anything. So you're going to rewind, and it's called the rewind method. Okay, so try that out. All right. Yes, yeah, thank you, Eternal, right? That's really, really cool. Yes, X, yeah, 100%, right? And then what you want to do is when you feel like when you think of it, you don't have the emotional connection, that's when you know it's worked. Okay. So if it takes you 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, do that. If you don't have that, do 20 minutes today, 20 minutes tomorrow, 20 minutes the next day, right? If you can't do that, do it 10 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow, 10 minutes, whatever you can do, invest in doing that practice. And then you'll know, because when you think about it, it won't have the same emotional power. Then you can begin creating scenes that went different. But what you're doing is you're doing like a step removed, where you're removing the emotional power and the experience, because really what we experience, what we emotionalize, that's really what's happening, right? So, okay, I didn't mean to go this long, but you guys had loads of awesome questions. So again, yes, yeah, and I mean, listen, if vision boards help you, then use those. Again, sorry for the background noise, but if vision boards help you, use those. Do not rely on them. If you use any technique, do not rely on the technique. Even if Neville gave it, even Neville says, choose a method, but don't get too handsy with it. Don't be like, I need this, right? Because you are the technique. You are the placebo effect. You are it. That's it. Even Alan Watts said that. You are it, right? And Neville says you are God, and the failure the failure to realize this means that you're never going to live your life, right? And so, but a lot of people have programming around that belief of what God is, who God is, where God is, and that is why people come to me, because they're like, I don't know how to get beyond that, and that's what I'm good at, right? So again, this is about deprogramming and decategorizing. So again, everyone as you pushed out today is all about letting go of the categories, decategorizing. So keep in mind, I'll be writing and finishing up an article today that will hopefully show up on Reddit either today or tomorrow or the next day. And so again, follow me there under OK Initiative. Join the Discord, it's free. Get in touch for packages. There's an email you can get a hold of me on today. There is a wait list now because people, I'm getting really busy, which is awesome because you guys are loving it, which is amazing, and people are actually seeing results. Like I said, somebody came to me and said, "Dude, you're legit," right? I helped them with a situation that was pretty powerful for them, and it actually reversed. So, somebody got healthy that wasn't told that they were going to be healthy, and so on. So again, yeah. So taking responsibility is very key. Very, very key. Okay. So again, but remember, even when I say I'm the coach and I'm doing that, I'm not doing that. I'm helping you. I'm manifesting with you. But at the end of the day, I'm just teaching you that you are it, right? But sometimes people need help, and there's nothing wrong with that. Neville himself was a coach. Esther is a coach, right? All of these people that people slam, well, you don't need to go to a coach. Why not? There's nothing wrong with it, right? So again, let's see, the character technique seems to be really good, pretending like an actor all day long until it becomes normal. What do you think about it? Yeah, so again, Raheem, that is super powerful. So that's actually an NLP technique as well. But what I would encourage also, not only you, because you may already do this, but other people, if you're hearing what Raheem is asking, it is actually an NLP technique, and it's called the character technique as well. And you basically are embodying. So what would that person look like today? And I mean, write down actions. How would they react to if this happened? How would they react to this scene if this happened this way? How would they react to this? How would they see it this way, right? Because there might be things that happen throughout your day where you're like, oh, that didn't happen the way I wanted to, right? Well, then how would they react to that? And it's not like setting up for the worst, because always assume the best. right? And never assume the worst. And that's not being naive. That's being stubborn, right? Because you deserve the best, right? So again, the very, 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 very different mindset here, right? But yeah, so be the actor, be it. Method acting. I'm in acting. I'm in stand-up. So I'm in that world. So method act. Look up how to method act and then use those techniques and how to become. Guarantee you it will work every time. Every time. I may not be able to give you a timeline, but I guarantee you it will work, right? Okay, well, thank you everybody for being here. Thank you for staying on this long. You guys are all awesome. Every single one of you are awesome. Every single one of you are more than capable than you give yourself credit for, right? And X, make sure that you throw me an email or join the Discord and ask that. I definitely want to answer it. But basically, what I want to do is give you guys some breather. Try to practice these out. Try the method acting. Try the NLP technique. Right. Reverse the scene. Right. And I still think that's an important question. How does my imagination sometimes spin out of control? Like imagining things that I don't imagine. That is where Neville says. He even says in his own meditation practice, right? In his radio lectures, he says, what I do, in meaning him himself, right, is that his work is what he calls the plowman's labor. So he says he full on will use meditation, not to meditate, but to learn how to control and guide his thoughts while he's doing meditation, right? And so, even there's basketball players who are saying that they don't meditate, right? But that they visualize. And so that's the same idea that Neville is saying here, right? Is that like you're using meditation as a way to control and guide your thoughts, control and guide your thoughts, control and shape your thoughts, control and shape your thoughts, control and shape your thoughts, right? And you're using that as the technique. That is the technique. So this idea, right, of like actually trying to fight thoughts and try to clear thoughts. No, that's not meditation at all. If you talk to an actual Buddhist, they would completely disagree with that, right? So yeah, no worries. Thank you, X. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you all for being here. Much love. Get in touch with any questions. Again, email in my bio on here. Free Discord link there. If not, get in touch and I'll make sure you have the right one. Check out my articles on Reddit. And much love to you guys all. Be safe in the world. Thank you for your support. And I will be on tomorrow sometime. Talk to you soon.